So, good evening, folks. Happy to see you all. Some that I don't. Some that I don't. This is we're here at the county Senior Citizen Center, and courtesy of Gail Shaw, the director here, and we're happy to be here. Some of us have some very big familiarity with this building. One fellow sitting here, Tom Seaman, was the architect who caused this building to come together in the manner that it came together.
Thank you.
Other people were, and we were just noticing the old stool positions here that show where the counter operation used to be. So we know about the history of this place, and we're happy to be here. So just so to get ourselves along, I'm going to introduce myself and our team. I'm Steve Brand. This is my partner, Susan Matheson. This is my other partner, Alex Ray. This is my other partner, Lisa Mireille. The four of us comprise the Common Man for Ukraine management team, if you like that. So we're the people that sort of bought this thing up, and we decided to make it and Alex and I are both Rotarians, so you'll hear more about that in a bit. So thanks for coming. We do think that this is a really wonderful project. I'll just give you one number so you can think about the number and figure out how much it takes to get that number. $3 million. $3 million is how much we have raised, the four of us and a few other folks, to bring assistance to the kids of the war in Ukraine. So I think that's in 2 years, and we're trying to keep that going. Susan will tell you more. So I am happy to just lead this off and turn it right over to our main presenter, my partner and squeeze, Susan Matheson. Here she is.
Thank you. It's great to see you. Can you hear this? So, in February of 2022, when the news came about the bombing in Ukraine, Alex and Steve and Lisa and I were just having coffee like we do so many days in the morning, and we looked at each other incredulous that Russia was bombing a young democratic nation and innocent civilians were being killed. And we all looked at each other and said, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And most of you in this room know Alex. And of course, Alex has lots of really creative and out-of-the-box ideas. I always say he's a great businessman, a wonderful philanthropist, my friend, and he's crazy. And so he said, I think we should do something together. And one of the things we should do is go to Ukraine to find out what they need and how we can help. And that's exactly what we did. Within about a couple of weeks, we were on a plane and in Ukraine, and this is Alex standing in a rapeseed field in Ukraine. Gorgeous, isn't it? And can you see the flag of Ukraine in that yellow field and blue sky?
The flag.
So when we embarked on our journey, these are the things that we knew. We knew that there, all over the United States, there were people like us who wanted to do something but didn't know what to do. And that together, if we could galvanize all that interest and passion and generosity, we could do good. But first we needed to know what they needed and how we could make it happen. And so off we went. Now, Alex and Steve Rand are both Rotarians. Rotary is an international service organization, and one brilliant idea that Steve had was that we should reach out to Rotary, see what they're doing over there and how we could fold into that. So we contacted Rotary and told them we were on our way. We were going to be there in 3 days, and we'd like to raise at least $2 million to help kids in Ukraine. And so we arrived in Warsaw, and the very first night we arrived, this meeting of 16 different Rotary Club presidents were waiting for us. And they presented to us the projects that they thought that was needed most of all, or needed most of all, for Ukraine. But you have to remember, this is really just in the first couple of months of the war. No one dreamed we would be dreaming about projects or needing to fund projects 2 years later. We thought we needed first aid kits and some tourniquets maybe and some blankets. We didn't realize that we would have infrastructure and that kids would be in hiding 2 years later. So we looked at or listened to their proposals for different projects. Alex had pledged $1 million, and the four of us together had committed to raising from other donors another $1 million. So we were hoping to raise a total of $2 million. So they presented the projects that might get funded, and we all said, well, that's great, but that's just a spreadsheet. We really want to go into Ukraine and see what's happening and talk to the people on the ground. And so we met a person here with a Rotary blazer on. His name is Richard. Over the last 2 years, he's come to be a very, very dear friend. We've traveled thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometers in a sweaty, cold, hot, stuffy van all seasons of the year across the Ukrainian countryside. Richard heads up, organizes, and devotes his life to our food program and to our trauma counseling programs. And those are the two programs we'll talk about. But first, here we are. We're in Poland the night before our very first trip into Ukraine. There's active bombing in Lviv. And Richard looked at us and said, are you sure? Like, this is a time you could turn around and say, we'll find a different way. But Alex was intent on getting onto the ground and talking to the people of Ukraine to find out what they needed. And so we plotted our trip, and before you know it, the next morning we were crossing the border into Ukraine. Is it scary? It's really scary sometimes. If there's an air raid siren, it's scary, or when you come to a checkpoint like this with men with automatic rifles and they can't speak a word of English and you don't speak a word of Ukrainian and you're handing over your passport, the tension in the van can get pretty high. But we know that the work we're doing is very important, and there are children, hundreds of thousands of children in Ukraine that need our help. And so we decided early on that no matter what, we would be as brave as Ukrainians. So humanitarian aid, if you think about it, it could be so many different things. We could be fixing bombed out cars, we could provide long underwear to soldiers in the winter, we could be raising money for laptops for students hiding in bomb shelters. There's a million things you could do. But we decided that we wanted to focus on one thing and do it really well. And what we landed on was the children of the war, the most innocent and most vulnerable victims of Putin's aggression. And so we did our research, and then we found out that there's 2.5 million children displaced within Ukraine. So these Ukrainian kids that have been put on trains, mostly from eastern Ukraine. They've been put on trains and traveled for 2 or 3 days, maybe with a guardian, maybe not, to safe houses in western Ukraine. And there they are hiding. They're hiding from the kidnapping, the Russian kidnapping, the trafficking of these young children, and they're hiding from the bombing. Their moms are staying home to protect their homes, to be part of the community, support their husbands when they come and go from the war, maybe take care of grandma. But the priority was to get these kids to safety, and that's where we were focusing on how to help these kids. Now, Ukraine had a great social service system before the war. They had orphanages, and they took care of kids that needed help. But the war and the sheer volume of kids that need help now completely inundated their system, and that's where we can come in and make a big difference. So we have two main programs. One is this food program. What we do is we have raised enough money to buy and distribute 900 tons of food into the safe houses of Ukraine. What we've sent is hundreds of tons of grain, generators, sleeping bags, other very important essentials. We haven't really purchased luxury items, games or soccer balls. Other people have done that, but we focus really on life-saving, critical needs for these kids. So, this is a miraculous picture to me. Here's a little girl in front of her apartment building with a sign thanking the Rotarians, the generous donors of people from Plymouth, New Hampshire. And I just want you to let that sink in, how fortunate we are to be able to help this child and how generous all of you have been to be able to let us help this child and her family. So she's holding a bag of food that will, or on her, next to her feet is a bag of food that will sustain her for a week or so. So how do we do it? Well, we rent 2 warehouses in Poland because warehouses in Ukraine are often bombed. So we rent 2 warehouses in 2 little cities not too far from the border of Ukraine, and we stage our goods there. And then Rotarians from Poland, every 2 weeks, these saints, these unbelievable missionaries of peace, load up the trucks and drive all over Ukraine in a war zone, delivering food, sleeping bags, and generators to safe houses to kids in need. We go over, we've been 8 times. We go once in a while, but these convoys of food go. And Richard, remember our friend Richard? He organizes it. He makes sure that they can get across the border safely. He makes sure he has the right census for each safe house. He works with the military to find the secret locations of these safe houses. Remember, they're hiding from the Russians, so this is not readily available information. But Common Man for Ukraine has a good and reliable reputation with the military, and they provide us this information and facilitate our border crossing. So this is a video of a year ago of a Christmas convoy.
Deported into Russia. Thousands of children are being evacuated to other places far from the front line. In those places, there is a shortage of electricity,
You'll
food,
see there's no electricity in the safe house and no heat.
In light of this situation, I decided to focus on helping orphanages in Ukraine. The first convoy departed on December 17, 2022.
There's 20 trucks full.
We reached 22 orphanages, where a total of about 1,300 children were housed.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Downtown Lviv.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We delivered about 20 tons of food, 22 power generators, 1,000 sleeping bags, and 1,350 Christmas presents.
There's no electricity in this building. The floor, concrete, cold, no electricity. This is Christmas.
Check out that girl in the pink hat.
The aid that Rotarians provided to Ukraine was made possible by significant financial support from Alex Ray and Common Man for Ukraine, Rotary Club Plymouth, District 7850 New Hampshire, District 2231 Poland.
These are all Rotary volunteers. No one's getting paid here. They're working deep into the dark night, loading the convoy for tomorrow.
Presents for the children. More Christmas presents. Back in April 1st, we found that we could not figure out people from the United States how to help with
here in Ukraine. And so we figured out a way to raise money. Our company put up $1 million, and they will double that. And we came up with $2.4 million in the 6 months. And that money comes over here when we worked with the local Rotary
Those are all
to
trucks.
receive our money. And we came here, this is our third trip. So we came here to say, what do you need and how can we help? So we had 6 projects, orphanages, a bloodmobile, food is the big one. That was each week $20,000 per week for both Poland and Ukraine. And the people here distributed it from Rotary, and we just gave the funds in the United States and brought it here.
Continuation of this aid will depend on the funds we receive from our partners in the US and donors.
That's the whole concept.
We are convinced that our aid must reach as many orphanages in Ukraine as possible.
So these are kids unloading food into the basement of their safe house. Got the candy, got a treat. We're using flashlights because there's no power in the safe house.
Oh, it was great.
That's grateful. So I asked you to notice the girl in the pink hat. She had the pink hat, these big glasses, and she was singing Ukrainian anthems loudly with a big smile on her face. And I thought lovely. We took a little video of her and everything was great. We went back to this very safe house a year to the day. A year to the day, on December 17th, 2023. And we were greeted by the same kids. That same girl with the same pink hat had spent 365 days in hiding in this institutional building away from her family, her community, her school, and her friends. It breaks your heart when you think about it, but it also emboldens us to keep on and help these kids as much as we can. And while we bring very unglamorous things like generators and food, we also bring some treats every once in a while. And on this particular occasion, through the generosity of people who send us boxes of Beanie Babies, and I just want to show you what it means to a kid in a safe house. This is one 3-year-old. The war's been going for 2 years old. For 2 years, he's in a safe house.
Did you say he's 3 years old?
Yes, he is. So one little Beanie Baby that came all the way from Plymouth, New Hampshire to kids in a safe house in Ukraine, and it's bringing him joy. We're so privileged to be a part of that. We've been 8 times. We pay for all our own transportation. We don't take any money from the donations. We think that's really important that we can tell to our donors that the money that they give us goes directly to the kids. And it's a long journey, and we're old. It's a big deal to go to Ukraine. You have to fly to Warsaw, take a train to Lublin, and they take a van to Zamość, and then they take another van to the border, and then cross the border, and then you're just starting your journey into Ukraine. And so we go for really important reasons. We go to reinforce the relationships. The guys that drive these trucks, 2 of them in a truck, every 2 weeks, into a war zone, driving food into safe houses for kids they will never know. And they do it week after week, month after month, for 2 years. And they do it to help us, and we want to let them know how much we appreciate that. We want to make sure there's no leakage. We want to make sure that what we want to buy is being purchased, and that's what's being delivered, all of it. Nothing finds its way into other hands. We don't purchase things that are not highest priority. And we want to stay nimble. So an example was when we first started, it was spring and then summer, and we thought, oh, well, this war's not going to last long. And then it turned to fall. And then Putin started bombing the infrastructure, and these kids had no heat. And so we had to be nimble and all of a sudden fill our warehouses with sleeping bags and generators. So those are the reasons we go, to have our hands close to the projects and close to the kids to know we're doing the right thing. And as we all know, and we're more willing to talk about in life, mental health is so important. And these kids are bearing an unfathomable burden of tragedy and loss and fear. And so one of the Polish Rotarians had this vision of starting a trauma counseling center, an education center for Ukrainian refugees in Poland. And we were able on that first trip to fund that project for the first year, and subsequently we funded it for another 2 years. And then Pfizer in Poland, the drug company, also contributed funds to open a second center. So from our little beginnings, this thing has grown and expanded, and we're really proud of it. 50 kids come to the center a day. They get counseling and education. They get meditation and speech therapy. We honor their culture as Ukrainians. No one is trying to convince them to become Polish citizens or U.S. citizens. They are Ukrainian, and we hope that they get to go home someday. But in the meantime, they'll feel loved and supported in this center. We'll work with them in their trauma counseling. And then in the evenings, since we rent this facility, we have access to it in the evenings. We have adults that come in, attorneys that come and provide free legal support to the moms and grandmas as they try to rebuild their lives. Because often they've left in a hurry, they left their passport, they left their marriage license, they left their bank records, and we try to help them figure out how to get a job in Poland, how to get their passport reissued, etc. So all those things, and we do it for free. Or we don't do it. Wonderful volunteers do it. But here's the project that's nearest and dearest to our hearts, which is we run 3-week mental health trauma counseling retreats for children 30 to 35 each month. And every single child at the retreat has lost their father in the war. Sometimes they lost their father a month ago, maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago. We have had children whose fathers have just disappeared. They were fighting in Bakhmut or Kharkiv, and they don't know where Dad is. They hold a candle, but in all reality, Dad's probably gone. They are carrying an ongoing trauma. It's not just the loss of their dad, which would be formidable enough, but also their communities are in jeopardy. Their moms are sad and trying to reconstruct a life without their partners. Their schools are in question. Everything about their lives, all those important foundational building blocks of a child's life have been disturbed. These kids need our support. And so they come from all over Ukraine. They don't know each other, 30 to 35 every month, and they come for 3 weeks across the border. We put them on our bus in Lviv, Ukraine. They come across the border to Poland, to a beautiful mountain resort town. And we rent a lodge, and there they are for 3 weeks, safe. For some of the kids, it's the first time in years, 2 years, that they haven't heard bombing every single night, and they sleep soundly. They meet other kids who have lost their dads, and we give them tools to work on their trauma, to face the future, and to someday rebuild Ukraine. The most wonderful thing is to watch these kids come when they first arrive, nervous and sad, forlorn, and over the weeks of hiking and swimming and being with each other and talking about their loss and their commitment to the future of Ukraine, they become happier and more open, and they create friendships that they'll hold for the rest of their lives.
But they have to go back.
And they get to go back home because Ukraine is home. It's tough. It's tough.
But they found new friends for life on this thing. For the rest, they won't forget what they've been through ever. But
Every family who has to make a decision to stay in Ukraine or to leave Ukraine must be heart-wrenching to make that decision. We honor these families' decisions to stay in Ukraine, and we will, of course, return their children to them at the end of 3 weeks.
How do they survive though in Ukraine when they go back? I mean, is it almost everything destroyed over there? Oh my gosh.
In many places,
Imagine.
in many places it is, and
I just can't even imagine, you know, not having a roof over my head and sleeping under a rock or something and waiting for a bomb to drop on me.
or hiding in a bomb shelter for days on end.
so it's not the whole country that's ruined. It's probably 10 or 15%, but they've all have to live under this daily, maybe no electricity today, no water, no gas, propane, and every day is a different day. And then you hear these sirens with planes going over. You don't know if it's another hit or if they're just terrorizing. And it's so that cloud, we take them out of there, and I can't believe how these kids play together. 35 kids at one camp, house more like a resort, and then they had a bus for every day. We'd go somewhere, a zoo, a museum, indoor swimming place that was big, or into a town for going up the whatever they call those things.
A train.
Tramway up to the top, and things they'd never do. Forget home, they never forget it, but they're enjoying each other. You want to tell them a little bit
So
about
they
it?
have a new group of friends when they leave, and amazingly enough, many of these kids either have cell phones or access to cell phones. They call each other. They actually talk to each other. So
They go home with therapy has given them tools.
yes,
absolutely,
they have.
coping
Right.
tools.
So they know, like, okay, when I'm feeling really sad, I can do this. This helps, right? Because they've had a chance to practice it. They've had a chance to figure out like what causes them to be able to overcome their fear and their trauma, and then an influence on the other kids around them who are back in their own place, in their own hometowns. So many of the kids. So if you watch the war news, you'll see that there's kind of a big diagonal line across the country where the Russians have invaded the very eastmost part of the world. And so frankly, we don't have any connection with those kids because they can't get out of the war zone. On the edges, there are kids who come, and they come, and we visited those cities, and we've actually been on the last, I don't know if we're going to show that, but we've been to the homes of a couple of these kids. They live and their living conditions are decent. It's not every kid is and not every kid has bombed out. So the main thing is that these are the kids that are going to rebuild that country.
Right.
So we're investing in these kids because they will be there, and we're sending them back to Ukraine because that's where the work is that needs to be done.
They're the future of Ukraine, like our kids are the future here.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
have to support them all.
We wouldn't send our kids to Canada.
And these children, the ones that come to the monthly retreat, are from all over Ukraine because the fathers are from all over Ukraine. These kids have all lost their fathers in the war and sometimes other family members, older brothers, and so forth. And the number that I don't think we see in the news enough is just how many fathers, soldiers are dying. I mean, they're losing conservatively 10,000 men a month. I mean, they've lost, over 300,000 men, mostly men, so far. So it's not for the light of heart. It's a pretty brutal. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's rockets. It's rockets.
That doesn't really ever hit the news. I mean, it hits the news about somebody doing something stupid. But, it's still, I think that the news media has kind of lost some of the, I don't know the terminology I want, but they have just lost some of the, like, from something, it's like, oh, it's back page here, we're not on page 20, we're on page 20, but it's still very active. And people, it's like, I grew up in the Vietnam War, and all of a sudden Vietnam War was not in front center, it was way in the back, it was still going on. The news media only was glorifying some stupid somebody doing something, and here was like these issues that still, I still strongly believe that it should be every day, we should have something on, one of these newspapers or something on television to really, kind of instill in us that, this is still going on.
You're very right, that there are so many catastrophes in the world going on right now. We have the war in Israel and Gaza, we have the earthquake in Turkey, we have what's happening in Sudan, and what's happening in Ukraine. And what we think is that if each of us does something, we'll together do a lot. Right now we're focused on Ukraine, not because those children are any more important than the kids in Gaza or any more important than the kids in Sudan. They're all important and their hearts break just the same. Right now we are going to focus on Ukraine. Hopefully the war will end and we could focus somewhere else. But right now, this is the catastrophe that has our focus. So while they're at the retreat, they get group and individual counseling, and the picture of the group here is just a daily check-in. At the end of the day, they sit in a big circle and they talk about everything light and everything heavy and everything in between. The staff, we always have an MD 24/7. We always have a child psychologist 24/7, and then a couple of teachers. They're Ukrainian. Everything takes place in Ukrainian. When we go, we can't really talk to the kids except through our translators and through our smiles. They eat Ukrainian food, they sing Ukrainian songs, and they wear their traditional Ukrainian dress. We honor their culture at every opportunity. This is a quick video of some of the kids. That's the resort we rent, and this is the bus that takes them every day on outings.
Ти відчуття, коли ти відчуваєш себе безпечно, ти не боїшся, коли ти не боїшся тривог, ти не боїшся, що тобі може статися погано.
Tanya, I want you to know how proud we are of you. All Americans are so impressed with how proud and brave Ukrainians are, and we want to find ways to show you that we care and that we love and support you. And I hope you'll remember that long after you leave home.
І це ще дуже довго буду пам'ятати.
Yes.
Тут не можна передати словами, як тут круто, коли ти... Ну просто класно. І це все. Тут немає більше слів, тут навіть не можна нічого сказати. Це відпочинок не описати словами. Хочу додати, що такий табір об'єднав одинакових діток з одною проблемою. І це дуже-дуже добре в тому плані, що діти бачать навколо себе таких дітей з нами. І вони розуміють, що вони не одні. І потім вони бачать, що їх підтримують, що їх розуміють, що вони не одні, що їх багато, на жаль, але так є. І вони знаходять сили, знаходять енергію тому що вони здружуються, вони повертаються трішечки в дитинство, дуже багато спілкуються, творять, розкриваються. І це дуже цікаво спостерігати, як вони змінюються. Це правда. Дякую вам за те, що ви маєте велике серце і допомагаєте Україні, допомагаєте нашим діткам, тому що діти – це майбутнє. Тому ми всім дякуємо і всьому світу, який підтримує, допомагає і рятує. Велике дякую.
Велике українське спасибі.
It's so wonderful. The way they got to amazing is Trish Lindbergh from PSU. Hopefully you know of her and her wonderful work at ETC, and her compatriot Harmony came to our Zakopane retreats for a session in August and did a theatrical production with the kids. Just think about the love that had to take, because they traveled all the way over there. They don't speak Ukrainian, and the kids didn't speak English. And together, through hand motions and love and the power of music and theater, they put together a wonderful production. It was really great, great thing.
I like the phrase "big hearts." That's so nice.
Yeah. It's always an adventure. This is a night where we got stuck in a snowbank, our trucks did, and it's an example of overcoming obstacles. There was no electricity in the landscape, and our truck tipped over, and the people in the homes around could see our headlights, but we couldn't see their houses, and sure enough, out of nowhere, came people with trucks and chains and helped these visitors from Poland and the U.S. who are bringing food to kids in safe houses. It's just a miracle. And it all is. It's all miraculous, because we're just 4 people in Plymouth, New Hampshire, who managed to find hundreds of volunteers and dedicated professionals to help us implement the purchase and distribution of 900 tons of food into secret locations of safe houses and kids in Ukraine, in a war zone. Like, how crazy is that? But it works, and it works because of the people that care about these kids. It's just wonderful. And those of you who know Alex know that he's just got this giant warm heart. And even when a Ukrainian safe house kitchen person says, no, 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 you may not come into the kitchen, he finds his way and finds the pot of borscht. And together they laugh and talk about the borscht. And it's built wonderful bridges with people that we don't know. These are the heroes that make it all work. The guy on the left is Victor from Ukraine. He helps us find the kids whose dads have been killed and work with the moms to gain their confidence so that we can bring them into Poland for their retreats. King Richard, the Lion-Hearted, runs our food program and oversees our trauma counseling center. Arthur helps us find 10,000 sleeping bags when you need them all of a sudden, or when the electricity networks have been bombed and you need generators and there's none to be found in Ukraine or Poland. You call Arthur and say, Arthur, we need a few hundred generators, quick. And then, of course, Alex and Steve and Lisa, who are the magic behind all of it, pushing it and keeping it up front and center here in the United States as much as we can, getting more donations and doing more good work. And there is more to do. So we started out with a goal of raising $2 million, and we hit that goal. And the problem about that was we'd also met these kids. And we saw the road that they are traveling. And we couldn't just say, well, that was really good, and we're glad we did that, and good luck, Ukraine. We had to keep going. And so we're going to keep going as long as these kids need us. We hope the war ends soon. But until it does, we're going to keep leaning into this project to try to raise funds to buy food and to provide trauma counseling. We'd like to increase the trauma counseling, the number of kids we can handle each month, and we'd also like to extend the counseling to the moms, because as we visited their homes, as Steve said, the moms are broken as well. And they need help to get through their traumas so they can be the best moms they can be now as single parents to these children. Our food program costs about $100,000 a month. Our trauma counseling center averages, 2 centers, averages about 60 kids a month. That costs us $40,000 a month. It costs about $44 a month to feed a kid in a safe house because of all our volunteer network. And the residential trauma counseling costs about $1,000 per kid for 3 weeks. That's everything from grabbing them in far eastern Ukraine to getting back. So it's a big number, $140,000 a month to try to raise that. We don't always make it, sometimes we do. But what we've also learned is people everywhere that hear our story do what they can do. And sometimes it's not a big donation. Sometimes you're a 5th grader in Boston and you make construction paper flags and sell them and then send us $48 in an envelope. But then the Boston TV station heard about Robbie and the station put the story on the news. And before we knew it, we were getting checks from other people who had been inspired by Robbie's story. So even though he gave us $48, he helped us raise thousands. So that's the way some person did what he could. We also have a great story about this little duck that came, the crocheted duck in the bottom of the picture, that came in a box with 19 other crocheted animals and a handwritten note written by an elderly person that said, "My heart hurts for the kids in Ukraine. I cannot afford to pay for my utilities, but I have yarn and I know how to crochet. Will you make sure these hugs make it to the kids in Ukraine?" Well, we don't bring much with us. We can't. We're talking about tons and tons and tons of food and sleep bag and generators. But we make room for these beautiful crocheted animals and bead babies, and they bring smiles to kids who really need them. And then there's the peace dolls. You want to talk about the peace dolls, Alex?
These just keep our spirits up. One of them's asleep.
They're named Magdalena and Maxine. And
How's it going? Good.
these were made by a group of knitters in Laconia, a group of women who said, "We have something for you." And they brought 250 peace dolls to us. And every peace doll has
They got a little something, they got a little something going on. They're kind of chummy.
That's for you, or
They have a handwritten note on each single one that says, "We're sending you love from the United States, we're hoping for peace for Ukraine, stay strong," or some other inspirational message. And so the kids get these peace dolls as long as the supplies will hold out. But we keep these 2 special ones that are in Ukrainian colors as our little mascots, and they travel with us in our trucks and vans wherever we go. So people ask how they can help. A lot of people want to pack boxes, but we don't do that here. We do everything in Poland and Ukraine. And so really the most unglamorous thing we do is ask for money. So if you can donate, we are so appreciative. We'll use your donation with great care. We pledge that to you. We pledge to volunteer our time and to make sure there's as minimal overhead as possible. But if you can't make a donation, and we understand times are tough, what you can do is spread the word. Grab a business card, grab 5, and give 4 away to your friends. And maybe someone can donate, and that would be great. Another thing you can do is just talk about the story, about 4 people who were able to coordinate the hearts, the love of so many thousands of others to create this program and help kids in Ukraine. Because if you tell enough people, maybe someday somebody's going to say, "Well, you know, my brother-in-law, he works for CNN. We could get your story in the New York Times." And that's the kind of thing that'll give our program a little bit more wings, and that help us raise that $140,000 So talk about us, spread the word, tell people you know.
There are people that have given us big money too, and few, but there's so many people that if they knew this story, they would help us. And if you know people who you think, are capable of donating, just somebody you might know and say, hey, and we want to tell you about our website and our what's the other way?
Facebook, website, the QR code.
Yeah, there's many ways to reach us, and if you can see, you people alone, just looking at it, the footage we have of watching us on there, it'll
If you have a group, a book group, a church group,
we'll do anything.
we'll come and talk to your group and spread the message. And even if it doesn't raise $1, what it's done is raise awareness and help us think and remember about the kids in Ukraine. I'm
There's,
going to leave it at this.
there's 3 ladies. Okay, here we go.
It's a bomb shelter for the kids.
School press up.
You read? Oh boy. Oh boy.
3 ladies from a convent in Manchester, very early in our game, wrote that quote to us. We're in a convent and we don't have much money, but we want to help. And it was 3 $5 bills, one from each of the 3 signed it. That was just right off the bat.
So you guys are doing a great job. That was a really nice presentation. It's tremendously sad. I can't believe how sad it is, really. I mean, the children are just heartbreaking. But it's a very nice presentation. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I just have one question, really kind of unrelated, but it's more of a war story. What do you think is going on? Is it getting worse? I mean, are the missiles getting worse? Are the attacks from Russia getting worse? I mean, as you said, it's kind of fallen off the news right now. It seems to be getting worse, but what's your impression?
At this moment, you have 2 things going on. This election thing that's for the next 3 months or 4 months, whatever it is. And the other big thing is
Israel.
everything that Susie mentioned that's taking place in the East.
Israel.
Housing and stuff. So everything has kind of a bell curve that lets people think. If you lose touch with it at the beginning, everybody wants to know, and then it slides back. So we do everything we can to ask people just to mention it to friends and say, we can do our part for this. And
So the answer is, we don't really have any more information about how the war is going than anybody else, although we probably pay more attention than anybody else.
Right.
And have more, sources of information. And, but the one thing we can definitely say is that the Ukrainians need and deserve our help. Our Congress should get it together and help them. So that they can have access to the necessary military equipment. That's not our game, but it is.
It is something you can do. You can reach out to your
Could be our game if that ends up making children homeless, and it will. So these guys are determined. So the Ukrainians are absolutely the bravest people and the most determined. You know, when we talk to them and we ask them, you know, how do you think things are going? They says, well, when we win the war, I always say when we win the war, not if, but when, then we will, we want to join those nations that are free, and we prize our freedom. We've had it for the last 30 years, and we don't want to go back to the old system. And we're determined not to. So that's a very determined group of people who are put everything they have into it, and they are actually they're fighting on the front line for us, as it turns out, right? So because they're taking the brunt of the military, the whole military piece, and if we don't support them, like that is just plain stupid and wrong.
And here, did you want to have those?
Well, you know, Ukrainians are incredibly committed to, you know, to their country, and it's very unwavering. I mean, there are some stories about, you know, Ukraine needing, you know, more troops. They need to recruit more men into the military. But, you know, one thing that we saw in terms of change is that when the Ukraine started its counteroffensive, which was in the summertime, a lot of the fighting stayed concentrated on the front line, but it was right around December when Russia started bombing across the country again, trying to hit the infrastructure, and they do that to try to weaken the resolve of the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainians have incredible resolve, so it's like this, it's just, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, but the Ukrainians are certainly not going to give up. They're very hardworking, they're very faithful, they're just really incredible people. So.
When did you all last there?
December.
So very recent. Oh, yeah.
Anecdotally, our friend Richard says it's worse than ever. He says the bombing is worse than ever. And they're not getting
And they don't publicize how many people are dying because they don't want to ruin the morale.
Here's a tiny little story that is chilling. All these kids come to our retreats and they have their cell phones. They're watching the cell phones on this thing called air alarm. Air alarm?
Air alert, yeah.
Air alert. Which is a real-time map of their country that's red or pink, depending on the current bombing situation and air raid siren. These are kids that are 7 years old, 8 years old, looking at this app.
At an app to see if there's bombing in their region.
In their town. And these kids should be looking at Mario Brothers or Barbie, and instead they're looking at this app. They're too young to bear this. It's
A
awful.
shame on news media, it says on the back burner. You don't hear
Yeah.
But thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
It's really a privilege. I mean,
Organization.
But you just pulled it together. I mean, it seems miraculous.
it is miraculous. It
I just,
absolutely
it's
is.
that shit that I can't even dream of. You know, the first night we met these 16 people, one of them said, talked about the loss of the product that they think they're getting from, you know, from anywhere in the world in a container.
Yeah.
And they say, we think it's good if we get 50% of it to them. You know what I mean? And we think we have no leads.
Right.
And the money, the minute treasure is right here. And
Yeah.
we actually had help with another, what's the name of it?
For the first
Year.
8 months, Granite United Way was our fiscal agent, but then as we expanded beyond New Hampshire, they had to let us go because we didn't want to compete with other United Ways. And so now, the Plymouth Rotary Foundation is the fiscal agent and the nonprofit under which we operate.
So everything that they buy, that we both agree on, each time we go, we talk about how's it going, what's happening, and then where are we going from here, what do we need, what can we do? And it depends on the season, the activity, everything, but it's tight as it can be.
And it wouldn't be what it is without the Rotarians in Poland and Ukraine. They're just
40
amazing
40
people.
guys for 2 years.
So completely volunteer, they do it just because they're passionate. Poland has that history, they went through this in the 90s, and so they're standing up for Ukraine too, yeah.
But you see it here in your Rotary group, when like sometimes the executive director from here, myself, will come and speak, and you see all these faces and they're enthusiastic. You know, they love their jobs, their businesses, whatever it is that they're doing, and you can't help but admire that. When you go elsewhere, for a silly example, we go camping in Maine and run into the owner of the campground's a Rotarian, and a good friend of ours is a Rotarian, and you know, they all have that same enthusiasm.
We want to talk to their clubs.
Yeah.
Talk to that
I want to know. Okay.
We will drive anywhere.
York, Maine, it'll be a fun trip.
I love York, I love York.
One thing that I've seen in some of the stores, they'll ask you to round up, but they never really say sometimes what you're rounding up, the texture, you know, like it's 1984 or something. Would you like to round it up to be $19? So a lot of places are not actually saying where it's being rounded up to, where it's going.
Or for where it's going,
Was it, they had it in the bottom someplace. And I was at the job lot, and she said, would you like to round it up for that? I said, sure. I wasn't even sure what I was rounding up for, but I could figure out it. So, you know, maybe that's another outlook for you, instead of like a jar on a counter or something. Just have that little sign, and all of them.
Common man restaurants.
Well, no, I mean, have it in every place that you go, and so that if you're keeping yourself in a front line, you're not draining anybody. Oh, sure, I can handle 24 cents, I can handle 23 cents, yeah. Because, and it's an easy way for people to donate without really, feeling, oh my gosh, I have to buy a loaf of bread, that's $3.45. Okay, what am I going to do?
That's a good idea.
Great. It doesn't seem to be like an extra, burden. So and as more retailers rounded things up and geared it for this particular group, it might make, it's just a trickling in, but still, a penny can turn into $1 very fast.
So one of the wonderful things about the senior center is, as Linda's demonstrating, is that we are mighty. We're old and we're fierce. So we'll get the word out.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
We really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, there's just a few of us, but we're captivated.
We're local roots right here, so it's really great to talk to you.
You guys were here when we were giving COVID shots in the parking lot.
Yeah,
we've done it for a long time.
We put, our penny, our Bacon Penny Club, when we have our meeting in February.
That's a great idea.
And see, they have this social club that's been going on since, I don't know, 95 or 75 or so, it's going on for a lot of years. And it's just a little social club, it's like the old war buses kind of get together and walk to lunch and do something. But yeah, we have Toys for Us to do, and we did at Christmas time, we all put a bag together and $10 worth of items, and we auctioned them off. And we some of those bags went for what's $30 or $40, and we turn that over to Toys R Us. So, if somebody does something like that, I know we have such a thing with the bag thing, you have the $10 bag thing or something. So if each retailer had some sort of little, because, we want to make sure that, we give, yet we kind of like that little bit of,
want to feel it.
I'm doing something, but yet I'm getting something.
Absolutely.
So if all the retailers really got together and creatively thought of something just relating to their own particular store, it's just a drop in the
Our
bucket.
charity of
That's a
choice,
good-
I think a lot of
Good
them
ideas.
do. Thanks for your ideas.
Take these cards to
We
clubs.
run on,
Leave
run
them on the
on
table,
love.
we'll make sure they get around.
love and ideas, and they're both equally important. They're equally important. And so we appreciate your ideas, and you know where we live, so